Welcome to Big Belly Burger. How can I help you?
It's Game of Thrones!
Hodor.
Game of Thrones!
Game of Thrones! Game of Thrones!
Game of Thrones!
We are back after an extended wait in between seasons, because, you know, they had to find winter. We have returned to Westeros on the eve of the Great War. The players have all arrived. The pieces are being set. And if the rest of the season is anything like tonight's episode, I can't wait for it to continue. That's right, everyone. It's the Season 7 premiere of Game of Thrones. Episode 1, Dragonstone. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of the return of Game of Thrones. So yes, lots of spoilers ahead, lots of them. Alright, so I know you, like me, have been greatly anticipating this show coming back, and oh, it was just such a joy to dive back into the world. You know, I took some time, you know, to watch a little bit of the past seasons here, kind of get back into the mood, get into the swing of things, catch up with everything that was going on before this season started off. And every time I do that, it always reminds me of just how incredibly dense this show is, how much happens from the beginning to the end of each season, how much storytelling is compressed into there. It is almost a perfect show in that sense. Every season doesn't have a single wasteful episode in it, and every episode doesn't have a wasted scene. There is no filler. There is no moment that you're like, nah, could have this, could not have this. You're waiting for the next thing to go on. Everything that is shot, everything that is shown in this show is important. There is an image that isn't shot, there isn't a word that isn't said that does not directly contribute to the story, either moving the story forward or giving us foreshadowing of coming events. Everything in this show is done really tightly, and it's just one of the things that makes it such a joy to watch and such a great thing to be able to experience. From watching so many other shows, some shows do it great, some shows not so much, but Game of Thrones always has been very consistent in the quality of each episode, the density, the meaning of it, and not wasting any time going from one moment to the next. And tonight's episode was, of course, no different. Beautifully, beautifully done. Now, usually the first episode of each season is the place setter. You know, we get all of the pieces set in their position. We get all of your main conflicts starting to be proclaimed. So we get our initial movements going. And that's exactly what this episode did. We have just a few minutes spent with each of our main characters, but each one sets where they are now and their plans for moving forward. Of course, this episode opens a little differently than some of the other ones, is we get to dive back into the phrase in a beautiful opening sequence that just spelled justice from beginning to end. I do have to say, I was wondering for a moment if we were doing a flashback, but as soon as Walder Frey starts talking about the heroes of the Red Wedding, and especially him not taking a drink of that wine, you knew something was wrong. And there was a beautiful move from Arya Stark, killing Walder Frey at the end of last season, now using his face mask to take out every other Frey. Oh, it was beautiful, but not harshly, because of course she kept the girl from drinking the wine. So she's very specific about her revenge. She does not like collateral damage, and that's something that we got to appreciate with Arya, especially since she's really heading down a dark road. I mean, when she killed Walder Frey, she had that smile on her face, and even as she left the parlor, the room filled with bodies, there was still that joyous smile on her face. And I love Arya, and that's definitely a potential dark road she could be traveling down. Revenge tends to make people very dark and twisted. However, I was kind of encouraged by the latter scene that we see with her when she encounters the Lannister soldiers there on the road, or the King's soldiers, but with the red, you know, they're Lannister, let's just say. Always a concern when she comes across any Lannisters or anyone like that she could just start stabby, she's got some plan with them. But it was a nice moment in between because these are just people. And I think as the conversation went on, it was wonderful that she got to see that human side of, you know, this blank, mindless, faceless enemy that she is after. She gets to see that some of them, they want to go home and see their dad. They want to meet their kid for the first time. They can't wait to be home and do all those family things. So I thought that was it was a nice scene because she's looking at her weapons and she's looking around and she's being her Arya cautiousness. But there's that worry, that concern, you know, that she's got something illicit planned out of it. And I wouldn't totally blame her, but the human side of these characters, I think, might really start to temper her approach towards things. And ending it with the very truthful statement of, I'm going down to kill the queen, and that they just laugh because it's the most ridiculous sounding thing you possibly could hear, I thought was perfect. She's being honest. But she doesn't really have to worry too much about these group of guys. So, I don't know, this might be a sign that maybe Arya's not going to go quite so psycho as we could potentially fear. Now, seeing John and Sansa back in Winterfell, you know, it's wonderful. It's such a warm feeling. And I love that they are diving right into the battle plans and what to move forward, and the practicality of it. John is saying, yes, we have to train all the men and women to fight. And of course, little Lady Mormont, God, I love her. She is a badass. I love that little girl. Standing up and saying, yes, of course, we can't have half of our people standing by and just watching all of the men fight. You know, and it's beautiful and it's perfect because John understands, one, the enemy that they're up against, but two, with the wildlings and all of the women fighters, and of course, this cute little redhead girl that isn't with us anymore, the power that they can have as fighters. So I think that it's, you know, and they've got Brienne with them, you know, which is another big reminder of the possibilities there. So I love the fact that they're approaching it from a practical sense and getting the wildlings, you know, there to man the towers to help fill the wall. It's beautifully done, and I like that approach. But what we really have in this scene is the beginnings of John and Sansa butting heads. It's kind of appropriate considering how much that John is talking about, no, we have to have women trained fighters, and yet there is a bit on him listening to Sansa. And I don't think I don't think she was wrong in her point. In fact, I think both of them were kind of right in their points. And it's almost like you've got your second in command, your number one, who is there to remind you of the alternates and the possibilities and the things. And I think if they got that relationship kind of in that direction, I think that it would go really well. They're even alluding towards that later on when Sansa's talking about, yes, Robb and Dad were both smart men, but they made stupid choices. So, of course, John's question, so that it's smarter to listen to you? And it's yes. Because she does have an understanding. She did spend time with Cersei. She understood Ramsay, and not listening to her knowledge of Ramsay almost cost John the big battle. I know we can debate whether or not she should have told them about the veil, but I think this is really the focus point that we need to have, is that he needs to start listening to all of the advice that's around him, and she has a great amount of advice to give. So I'm really hoping that the two of them isn't going to be so much of a butting heads as they really start to interweave their ideas, because that does give them such strength going forward. Now, that all being said, Sansa tearing Littlefinger down was beautiful. Oh man, I just loved her putting him in his place, just cutting him off at the knees. Not I mean, and it's weird because it's like, it's cruel, but it's like, it's not totally pushing away, it's just holding at arm's length. Yes, I know what you want, and yeah, I've got appreciative of you because you helped save all of our lives, and we kind of need your soldiers, but she is not, you know, she's not willing to be pushed around, especially how much Baelish has done, framed her, married her off to Ramsay, yes, saved her life, but come on, those other stuff, that's all pretty messed up. Not only mentioned betraying her dad. So she is very rightful to keep him at arm's length, but I love how she does it, is teasing him with what he wants and just dismissing his very thought. I thought was wonderfully done. Now the other brother and sister that are going to be butting heads a bit here are of course Jaime and Cersei in a beautiful shot. I love that map room. Oh, that was gorgeous. But a beautiful, again, moments there where we're seeing the two of them going. We have Cersei with her ambitions, everything that she wants. She doesn't see what she is lacking. She is seeing what it is she should have and what she want. Whereas Jaime, on the other hand, being extremely practical with all of his approach, reminding her of that they are surrounded at enemies, that they need allies, that they don't really have any allies. That bit when she's like, I'm Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and he's like, well, maybe 3. I thought was perfectly done. But again, here we are starting to see that dynamic really start to get set up. Even pushed when we have Euron show up there with his swaggery smugness, man, just waiting. You know, Jaime just wants to smack the crap out of that guy for very good reason. But here we are seeing that dichotomy. Now, I have to say, Cersei was, of course, wasn't just giving in to Euron because she is too smart. But again, this is her ambition. She is just baiting the hook for Euron to do her bidding. Where we have Jaime there really trying to point out the seriousness of how much he betrays and his lack of knowledge, his lack of abilities, and everything, all of the cost that comes associated with him. So we have here again, we have Cersei with her ambition and her plans and her hopes really being countered by Jaime's practicality and understanding of what is actually going on in the world and what is needed in order to attain a victory. Because as much as Cersei is certain in her vision that she will end up on top, Jaime is not feeling so sure about. Now, the one thing that I am curious about there is Ian's little promise of a gift, a priceless gift. Is it Tyrion that he's going to try and go after? Because that would seem to be a gift to give to her to show his dedication, to show Aeon's dedication, and certainly something that would make Cersei happy. But if it's not Tyrion, I'm still thinking it does seem to be a person that he is going after. So if it's not Tyrion, who would make Cersei really happy to have kneeling in front of her? And you can't say Dany, because that would be the end of the war. Now, we only saw the Hound for a brief moment, and it's kind of like a certain emotional payback for his past deeds here, of course, as he stumbles across the farm where the dad of the little kid that he stole the silver from way back when he was traveling with Arya. And you know that he knows exactly what to expect when he sees the farm. He knows exactly what he is going to see. And sure enough, when he comes in and we see the dried out, decayed, husk dead bodies of the family there, that was just, it was horrible. It was a very heart-wrenching scene. And you could see it on the Hound's face. And everybody else saw it. He wasn't fooling anybody that he didn't know these people, that there wasn't some sort of connection. But again, this is another one of those scenes where we start to see that change. Because the opening bit, when they're asking him, you know, you're in such a bad mood, you know, why are you always so hard? You know, why are you always in such a bad mood? He's like, experience. And it's that same hardness that we saw back in Sansa. It's that same experience that leads to that. Even when we go back to Arya, that same experience of harshness, you can see why she is going in her directions. We can see how that harshness can make you hard. How those experiences can make you untrusting and doubtful and very unemotionally connected with everyone. But here we had that reverse instance happening as the Hound really discovers that emotional, feeling, and he does feel regret. And as much as he tries to push it off and try and deflect it during that scene, it's all very obvious that it is because of what it is that he's feeling. So when he's beckoned into the fire, where we have a man that doesn't believe in anything, that is trying to build up those emotional walls to push everything away, when he gets to see and look into the fire and actually see something, a message from God, something that he can't deny because it is so clear and so specific for what he is seeing. The darkness, the Night King and his undead army marching on Eastwatch by the sea. That is something that he cannot deny, which is why at the very end he ends up digging the holes, he ends up digging the grave, because now with that sincerity, with that connection with a higher level, just a larger world and his place in it, now there is remorse. Now he can accept that remorse, and now he's moving to apologize, to move past that. And with that, he, of course, now starts to get help. Now, Sam, oh man, poor Sam. I don't know about you, man. I thought I was going to throw up watching those scenes with the latrine water and the poop and then the soup and the back and forth, and then you can't even tell what is the poop and what is the soup. It looks like whatever they're eating just is going right through them and coming right back out. It was nasty. It was disgusting. I was almost going to throw up there with him. Just, I don't know, harsh becoming a Maester. It's like a Maester. You got to start all the way down at the bottom. I thought he'd be doing a lot more studying and maybe a lot less grunt work right now. But it does sort of set up, his world, his scenes, the challenges that he's coming, the fact that people don't believe him. And even when he talks to the Grand Maester and he has that great big discussion, there's almost a sympathy, almost that feeling like you believe him. He believes Sam. He knows what is coming. He can see the truth in Sam's eyes. And yet, he makes the same mistake that everybody else is making. And that is the mistake, the mislearning from history. Is he sees history and just sees there's a constancy. Everybody thought the world was going to end when the Targaryens were going, and it didn't, because the Maesters are the memory of the people. They know that things keep moving, that there is a consistency there. But that is misreading history, because if history teaches anything, is even though things carry on, the one consistency, the one constant is always change. Everything changes. And yes, there has always been a wall, but that's not true. There has been a wall for a long time, but there once wasn't a wall. Which means, by the same token, there can be a world where there isn't a wall again. And that is the mistake that the Grand Maester is missing, is that change is the one constant. And whatever you think is going to be now, that possibility of change, of it all coming down, is ever present. So of course he's got to go in and steal the books. No one's going to listen to him. He's got to do the work himself. Where, of course, he discovers the big piece of information, the mountain of dragon glass. The dragon glass that John started the episode out in search for. The one that we know is the only thing that can kill White Walkers. And of course, where are you going to find dragon glass? Where you might find dragons. And there's only one place for that right now. And that is Dragonstone. And Daenerys' arrival there, just such a beautiful shot. I mean, so many of those. That was pretty much all of Dany's scenes, was just beautiful shots and beautiful camera work and beautiful imagery. The arriving on the shore, and those tiny boats up with those huge, massive stone cliff walls with all the colors and everything there. Stepping on the beach, the reaching down and grabbing the earth where she was born to return back to her ancestral homeland. The gates opening, the big long walk. I mean, really, it was picturesque from beginning to end. Love the throne. We got a brief shot of that, of course, in the first trailer. But here, just epically carved rock there. the dragons flying over Dragonstone. It looked so natural. I was just waiting for them to perch up at the top. It was like, oh yeah, those are giant dragon perches, of course. I mean, really just made. It just screams Targaryen. And of course, even when she walks into the big map room, which we saw with Stannis before, perfect play and a great counter to the map room scene that we saw with Cersei. It's like she's making up, whereas as Dany returns to the Targaryens, and that battle map is already laid out of all of Westeros to where to move the pieces. It was just wonderful. And really, even the background art, you know, all the dragons that were carved, which to me, when we saw before, kind of lost back into the background, here really popped out. Especially because everything was so sparse. There was no other decorations, no other people. It was sparse, it was stone, it was ancient, and yet it was home. I mean, it was just perfect sort of blend of feelings and emotions. And then, of course, ends with that thought, all right, let's get started. Man, let's get started indeed. Just there's nothing more I can say. It was beautiful. It was wonderfully done. The imagery was great. Wonderful camera work, and just super excited with what is to come. All right, so I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. If you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, throw those down in the section below. I love all of our talks. Please let me know what you thought of this episode. What do you think is going to happen in the rest of this season? Throw that down. We'll keep a conversation going. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. Now, you certainly don't want to miss any of the reviews coming up for this show or of Preacher What We're Doing, and you won't if you are a subscriber. And if you're not, just hit that little button right here and you'll catch everything. And I'll throw up our latest review, in fact, for Preacher right there. You can check that out. So, that's going to be it for me. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.